This is CBC Here and Now.
Right now, it's quite difficult. There was some fundraising efforts.
Waiting to go home.
But stuck in St. John's because there are no hospital beds in Happy Valley Goose Bay.
And live coverage from the campaign trail. Katie Breen is in Holyrood tonight, and Garrett Barry is in Carmanville.
They'll have the very latest from the Liberals and PC campaigns, and we'll update you on the final slate of candidates for all of the parties.
Good evening and welcome to Here and Now. I'm Carolyn Stokes.
And I'm Anthony Germain. A patient from Labrador is stuck in St. John's because of overcrowding at the hospital in his hometown.
Now that was a month ago, and he is still at a care center in St. John's.
Now his wife is looking for answers. Here Now's Jacob Barker has this report.
Roland Kamuchigak came here from an intensive care unit to recover from a massive stroke he experienced during surgery way back in December.
He's still paralyzed on his right side, but he's in good spirits.
He was supposed to be transferred back to Happy Valley Goose Bay nearly a month ago, but he and his wife Patricia are still waiting.
Both of our lives just missing our family and our friends and our grandchildren. You know, we miss Christmas, their birthdays, now Easter. You know, big events. So, and it's hard on family, it's hard on everyone.
There was a chance for Roland to go home on April 10th, but there was a mix-up.
When I found out why he was canceled, it was because they said he wasn't accepted as a patient into the hospital in Goose Bay, but he was on the 29th of March, but somehow the paperwork got lost.
He was scheduled for a flight a couple of days later, but by then, the beds were all gone.
Right now, it's quite difficult. There was some fundraising efforts. So I'm having to use a bit of that, but we're hoping not to use so much because that's for renovations, so my husband can come home.
Patricia, who's living at a hotel right now, took a leave of absence to be at her husband's side through the ordeal. She was collecting caretaker employment insurance to help her with her costs. That only lasts 15 weeks. It's been about 20 weeks since Roland's surgery. Patricia says she's been in touch with the department about the matter. She's also approached candidates, both incumbent and challengers in the upcoming election, about their predicament. She would like to see changes.
They seem to be a lot of times the beds are filled. So I think we may need more beds.
Labrador Grenfell Health acknowledges the lack of beds at the Labrador Health Centre. They say they've been over capacity for a number of weeks now and say they apologize to anybody who's experienced delays getting transferred home. Jacob Barker, CBC News, St. John's.
Well, children are expensive, but children with severe disabilities, well, parents practically can't afford them. That's according to some disability workers in this province. Here Now's Malone Mullen met with one family who says they're falling through the cracks.
Like any other 6-year-old, Lauren Tucker just wants to play. But she has cerebral palsy, so she needs a wheelchair to go anywhere, plus special equipment, an accessible van, and round-the-clock care, much of which her parents can't afford.
We want her to have goals and dreams that we can help her reach. We need help, and that's the bottom line.
Help the family isn't getting. In this province, parents with jobs, even modest ones, often don't qualify for government funding. That leaves families to foot the bill, spending tens of thousands on medical devices to help their children do basic things, like use the bathroom or learn to walk.
Everything is affected because of cerebral palsy and the fight that comes with it.
Is that fight necessary?
100% necessary. For us, should we have to fight? No, we shouldn't. We've got enough to fight. A disability for your child is enough to fight on a daily basis.
The fight isn't new. Kaylee Rogers made headlines 7 years ago after her parents made the shocking decision to hand her over to hospital officials, saying they couldn't afford her medical bills. Disability workers say nothing has changed since then. Kim Hart runs support groups for patients who take extreme measures, auctioning off their possessions and remortgaging homes, all to give their kids equal footing.
That's the number one thing that the parents are talking about. They're talking about how they just can't afford their children, basically.
Hart knows these struggles firsthand.
My little girl Chelsea is 14. She's totally blind. She's quadriplegic. She's one of the worst epileptics right now in the province. She's seizing probably about 60 times a day.
Despite that burden, Hart says the government doesn't look at her child's needs first. Instead, those holding the public purse head straight for the family's bottom line.
The government provides a lot of services and a lot of programs and a lot of support, but most families don't qualify for them.
There's money, but not for kids like Lauren, whose parents just want her to grow up and enjoy life.
I got slime.
Like any other 6-year-old. Malone Mullen, CBC News, Bay Roberts.
Well, here's a live shot outside on our rooftop cam. Yesterday it was full of ice, today snow. And if we take a look at what we're seeing on the satellite and radar, it's basically going to change over to rain at least within the next couple of hours, well, less than a couple of hours. So we're already starting to see that move in further north for the Avalon. Otherwise, this is snow for most of Central, and quite a bit at that. So here's a look at the warnings right now. We've got warnings for Bay of Exploits, Grand Falls, Windsor, Gander, up through Bonavista North, including Terra Nova tonight. And we're looking at significant amounts of snow with this system, likely between 20 to 30 or rather 15 to 20 centimeters of snow at the most. And you'll see that pick up as we head through the evening hours tonight, especially around 11 midnight is when we'll see most of that snow, or at least heaviest snowfall. It'll taper to flurries by the time tomorrow morning rolls around. Stick around for a little while, then we could see that potential for some drizzle for most of the Avalon in the afternoon. Otherwise, the sun should peek out at some point through the day tomorrow. I'll have all those details and your full forecast when I come back.
Well, we hit the campaign trail right now. Our Katie Breen is with the Liberals tonight in Holyrood and just back from Labrador. She is. And Garrett Barry is traveling with the PCs and is in Carmanville. We'll come back to them in just a few moments. But first, today was the deadline for the parties to lock in their candidates. Elections NL says there are 110 candidates running in total, including some independents. So let's take a look. The NDP falls short for this election with only 14 candidates. Now, that's not enough to form a majority government, even if they won all of the seats with those candidates. The PC party also short a full slate with 39 candidates in place. The PCs will not have someone in the Waterford Valley district to run up against Tom Osborne. And the new upstart party, the NL Alliance, has 9 candidates in place. And there also happens to be the same number, 9 independent candidates will be running. The Liberals, of course, as you've probably known by now, they have 40 candidates, but that is something that has been widely reported, of course, because most of those candidates were in place before the election was called, if not all of them. Now, we're going to be broadcasting the 2019 Leaders Television debate next Wednesday. That debate includes representatives from CBC, NTV, and The Telegram asking questions to the leaders of the Liberals, the PCs, and NDP, the 3 parties that currently hold seats inside the House of Assembly. And you can watch that right here at 7 p.m. Newfoundland time, 6:30 in most of Labrador on CBC television and on our YouTube channel. Well, the old Scully mine in Wabush is getting ready to open back up. That closed 5 years ago, and now new owners are working to have the pit pumping out iron ore once again in early June. So let's bring in Katie Breen now. Katie, the party is back on the island tonight.
Yeah, that's right. They're here in Holyrood for another campaign launch. But earlier today, they were taking on a tour of Decorah Mines. Movement on a mine that was shuttered for years. A slump in iron ore hit Lab West hard. Now the region is rebounding, with Decorah Resources reopening the old Scully pit.
We're actually in the process of starting up equipment in the plant, so crushers, thickeners, conveyors, to make sure that equipment is ready to take feed on.
The goal is to have everything operational June 3rd, in a month and a half. 200 workers are getting things going. Another 160 will be hired on once production starts. Many of them people who worked in the mine before it closed or at IOC,
We capitalize on that experience, and that's actually, I think, one of the tools that allowed us to execute in a much more efficient and a much faster manner.
Everything is on schedule, no cost overruns yet, and as Liberal leader Dwight Ball was showed around, he was asked what it's like to see a project like that.
It feels great to see a project on time and on budget, but it shows that, you know, when you have the experience that you have here with Cooper Resources, that you're able to do this, and they're bringing back equipment, bringing back people. It's a real confidence boost to this area. It's a confidence boost to the province in general.
The mine closed years ago because of global markets. Liberal incumbent Graham Leto says prices were at $40 a ton then. Now they're more than $100 a ton. The mine's life expectancy is another 25 years.
I've seen the cyclical up and down of the mining industry. It's been like it forever. But we feel this time that it's something that is more stable. It's not like the big boom and bust. It seems like the mining industry has stabilized.
Tonight, the Liberals plan to make a policy announcement in Paradise. They haven't given any indication on what that may be, but the party has promised to release its entire election campaign on Monday. Live in Holyrood, I'm Katie Breen for Here and Now.
Well, staying with the Liberals, a lifelong Liberal lawyer on the West Coast is questioning the way the government awarded a $20 million contract. Now, the contract in question is for a 20-year lease for office space. That's space that was allocated for Jerry Burns' Department of Fisheries and Land Resources. But lawyer Graham Watton wonders how a company that missed the deadline for bids was then mysteriously awarded the contract.
It's the fairness. It's the proper procedure which must be followed here in this particular case. Every contractor knows what the requirements is. Every ordinary layman in our society, every Newfoundlander and Labradorian realizes that a open call for bids, if you don't have your bid on that particular day in question, then you're disqualified. But here in this particular case, the government ignored it.
Now, I spoke with Graham Watton earlier today. The government, of course, denying Mr. Watton's allegations. We'll bring you that full interview in about 25 minutes.
And now to the PCs. Leader Ches Crosby spent his day campaigning in the Bonavista North area, meeting with voters in gas stations and coffee shops. But is he getting the traction he needs? Let's bring in Here and Now's Garrett Barry. So, Garrett, how are the PCs being received?
Well, you may remember a proclamation that Mr. Crosby made on the Avalon Peninsula on Monday. He said in front of the Confederation building that while his path to victory in this upcoming election is with a strong showing in the Avalon, he maintained that voters around the rural areas of the province would get to like him and respect him and appreciate him once they got to know him. We put that theory to the test today and spoke to some likely voters who had a chance to meet with Mr. Crosby. Here's what they said.
Well, he's certainly not charismatic, but he certainly seems to be devoted and connected with, trying to connect with the people. Well, we have had our pretty much share of charismatic leaders, right? Maybe it's time for a change, I don't know.
Yeah, they've got work to do, yes. But as he goes around meeting people, I think people get to talk to him. He'll come across better. I think he's got a chance, but at close up, he comes across better than he does from TV.
Yeah, actually, it's the first time I met him. Yeah, it's nice to finally put a face to a person here, you know, that's going to be representing Newfoundland.
What do you think a provincial government can do for, you know, your town or your area of the province?
Actually, you know, our community is really self-sufficient. We're really doing well with the, but I mean, maybe, you know, something towards getting our fire department. You know, we need a new truck for our fire department.
The main issue, I think, in rural Newfoundland is, you know, support for seniors. And like I said, the population is certainly increasing, and the number of younger people that's available to support the seniors are becoming less and less.
Now, you heard some voters there discussing their priorities, their thoughts going into next month's election. Crosby, for his part, says that he figures that issues in rural parts of this province and in urban parts of this province are very similar. He says everybody is concerned with jobs and hope, something that's become a bit of a campaign catchphrase for him so far. We also heard earlier in the program about the candidate list. Late this afternoon, the PC party learned that they would only run 39 candidates in this upcoming election. There was a candidate who they had hoped to run in the Waterford Valley area, but earlier today that candidate withdrew due to what the campaign is calling personal reasons. The campaign put a slogan out, or sorry, not a slogan, the campaign put a statement out this afternoon and said they wished him the best in his future endeavors. Anthony?
Garrett Barry reporting live. To other news, people who were affected by flooding on the Churchill River were in court today trying to launch a class action lawsuit. They're suing Nalcor and the province, and a judge is going to have to decide whether they actually qualify to form a class action suit. Now, they blame the flooding on the Churchill River in 2017 on the work upstream at Muskrat Falls. The province provided compensation for people whose homes were damaged, but the lawyer representing them says that isn't enough.
There are personal property damage for a lot of equipment. There's real property damage, diminution in property values. And very importantly, of course, is the psychological and physical harm caused to people during that disaster and the aftermath, because people are very concerned about whether this is going to happen again to them and their properties.
Well, a federal watchdog says Facebook broke a number of Canada's privacy laws, and it wants to take the social media giant to court. The report out today follows an investigation launched after the Cambridge Analytica scandal.
Office plans to take the matter to federal court to seek an order to force Facebook to correct its privacy practices.
My office will support Commissioner Therrien's federal court application while reserving our right to make further orders against Facebook for its actions if it's deemed appropriate in the future.
The report says Facebook wasn't accountable for user data. It says a lack of safeguards allowed an outside company access to millions of users' personal information without consent. The privacy watchdogs want financial penalties and stronger laws. They say Facebook's promises to improve privacy haven't led to meaningful changes. Both officials revealed that neither of them has a personal Facebook account.
All right, well, you've probably made a sand sculpture at the beach, but I'll bet it was a little smaller than what you're looking at. A group of artists and volunteers are very hard at work at Eastern Edge Gallery in St. John's, shaping 40 tons of sand into the centerpiece of a show that opens tomorrow night. Now, the work is going to resemble the fishing boat that was used to rescue Tamil migrants off of Newfoundland shores in 1986.
What this artwork is looking at is how we delineate between an us and a them. So the physics of a sand sculpture is that it actually holds itself together through surface tension between two particles of sand and a bridge of water. And so those 2 points of attraction, you know, if you multiply it by 1 billion, you get a form. And so in the similar way, the ways in which we can desire things for ourselves and for our families can create a form like country or nation. So I wanted to kind of use the metaphor of how sand holds itself together to talk about how we create an us and how that us can be used in different ways.
We go to art school and we learn a lot of concept and theory, and you do sort of smaller scale projects. But what is really shocking is how much you get into the real world and have to know engineering, and you need to have a really incredible design sensibility. You need to know math. We had to invite the help of a math professor from Memorial University to assist us in calculating the cubic feet of this very complicated form. It's a lot of professions in one.
Yeah. Yeah, a little more complicated than the typical beach sandcastle that we might make. Now, that exhibition, as you heard, is called Surface Tension, or What Holds an Us Together.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing the finished product. It opens tomorrow night and runs at Eastern Edge Gallery for the month of May. Same hotshot hoopsters on the courts in St. John's this morning.
We check in as the Edge gear up for their next game in the playoffs.
This weather update is brought to you by the Healthcare Foundation Home Lottery. Order your tickets now at hcfhomelottery.ca.
Well, just an hour or so ago, it looked like a bit of a winter wonderland outside our studio. So there you go. Lovely.
Yeah, imagine taking a seat on that. That was snapped earlier today on the North Head Trail.
And thank you, Matthew Hollett, for sharing that with us.
Yeah, hopefully you were wearing a hat.
Yeah, it's pretty spiky there. Around
yeah, no doubt windy.
It's a little cold and windy up there. Yeah. That's
Nice.
awesome, though. That's a great photo.
Yeah.
It is.
It's up on Signal Hill, right? On that part of the trail. I don't see too many people sitting down there today, but good on you for actually making it out there.
Yeah, there was a lot of that today, and then we saw earlier all of that ice on the trees was falling because those temperatures were climbing a little bit up above zero, and
yeah,
now
you
it's
called
all
that
snow.
one for sure.
Yeah, yeah, and now it's all snow, and you know those temperatures are hovering around the 0 degree mark right now for most of the province, or at least most of the island. Down on the south shore, though, those temperatures are a little warmer, and that's because we're starting to see some rain, and the temperature should actually climb up above zero in the next little bit for the rest of the Avalon, especially the metro area, and we should see this snow that's already being reported as ice pellets over to rain in the next couple of hours. Otherwise, we've got that snow very much happening across most of the rest of the island. And it's actually going to intensify as we head through the night tonight. So those snowfall warnings are in place for the Bay of Exploits, Grand Falls, Windsor, all the way through to Terra Nova, including Bonavista Vista North. And then we have a wind warning in place for the Rec House area. Those winds already below the 100 km/h mark, so I wouldn't be surprised to see that end within the next couple of hours there. Otherwise, yeah, we're going to continue to see that snow track a little bit further north as we head through the night tonight, eventually tapering to flurries by tomorrow morning for along the northeast coast. And then up through Labrador, we're going to see that potential for some flurries and cloud cover in the morning hours. And then we should see that clear out. So here's a look at how much is expected. That bullseye has moved a little bit further north, so between 15 to 20 centimeters for the Gander area, a little bit less as we head further west and south. So we're looking at between 5 to 10 centimeters for the interior. And then for Bonavista, you could see about 15 to 20 centimeters as well. Likely going to see some of that as ice pellets, so bringing that mixture down or bringing those accumulations down a little bit. So those temperatures, as I mentioned, should climb up to about 1 degree for St. John's overnight tonight. That's why we're going to see that rain. Grand Falls, Windsor, and Gander sitting around -1. Same for Corner Brook and Port aux Basques as well, with that potential for flurries as we head through the overnight. But the good news is those winds will ease by the time tomorrow morning rolls around, but will pick right back up tomorrow. Up through Labrador, clear skies for the most part. Lab City still looking at that potential for a few flurries. -8 will be your overnight low tonight. -3 for Nain, and Cartwright looking at -8 as well. Now, looking ahead to tomorrow, once that low pulls away, still going to see that potential for some lingering flurry activity, especially along the northeast coast, potentially the west coast as well. The Avalon likely going to see some drizzle. Can't rule out the chance of seeing a few peaks of sun, though, through the afternoon, and then we will eventually see some clearing as a ridge of high pressure moves in. Same up through Labrador as well, more cloud than sun for the first half of the day, and then you'll see that clearing, especially for Lab City as well in the first half of the day. And then as we head towards the overnight, we'll start to see some more cloud cover move in, and that's ahead of the next system that rolls through. So here's a look at the forecast for tomorrow. Those temperatures 7 degrees for Marystown with that rain eventually clearing, as I mentioned, up through parts of central Grand Falls, Windsor, seeing a high near 3 degrees. 6 in Stephenville, plenty of sunshine down through the southwest, but then again, looking at that potential for some flurries or showers tomorrow afternoon. St. Anthony, 3 degrees tomorrow, and then plenty of sunshine up through Labrador again by the time the afternoon rolls around. Churchill Falls should reach a high near 6.3 in Happy Valley, Goose Bay, with that potential for flurry. So that's a look at the forecast. Looking ahead, there is more rain, which isn't good news for our neighbors to the west, but I'll have all those details coming up.
Thanks, Ashley. Well, the St. John's Edge was at Holy Heart of Mary High School in St. John's today.
They're getting ready to hit the road.
The team is up 2-0 in the NBLC Central Division Finals against the Kitchener-Waterloo Titans. And Game 3 will carry some extra meaning for one St. John's Edge player.
Yeah, forward Murphy Bernatowski is from Kitchener-Waterloo and hasn't even played a game there since about grade 10. And there was no professional team in the town when he was growing up. So Bernatowski says to have the opportunity to play in front of his hometown crowd as a pro, well, that's a dream come true.
All the guys, I grew up playing against, all my family members, I have my parents, my sisters, so I'm pretty excited. There's a lot of people I'm looking forward to seeing, and I'm pretty excited to play in front of them. A little extra motivation.
What meaning does that give you to be able to play in front of your friends and family like that?
It's everything, it's a lot of the guys that, pushed me to be where I am today, and they followed me along the way, so for them to get to see me play in person, it's pretty important.
And the Edge are not the only team busy this weekend.
Nope, not at all. The Newfoundland Growlers, they begin the second round of playoffs against the Kitchener-Waterloo Titans. Game time is Friday night, and the place, Mile One Center. A Liberal lawyer in Corner Brook is raising serious questions about how the Liberal government awarded a contract for a 20-year lease for office space. Now, this contract, worth about $20 million, is for office space in Jerry Burns' Department of Fisheries and Land Resources. Graham Watton is a lifelong Liberal who says he's disappointed that a company that missed the deadline was mysteriously awarded the contract. And Mr. Watton joins us now from our studio in Corner Brook. Mr. Watton, welcome to Here and Now.
Good day. How are you, Mr. Germain?
Excellent. Now, you came to St. John's for the public opening of these proposals we're talking about for this office space contract. That was on April 16th of last year. What happened?
Yes, on that particular day in question, I attended the opening of the bids. Each bid was read out loud by the chairperson. Secretary was there. And there was another individual from the Department of Transportation and Works. There were 8 bids read out. As the bids were read out, I wrote them down, the name of the bidders, the amount of the bids. And after this was completed, I asked the chairperson if there was any other bids to be received or submitted, and the chairperson said no.
Okay, now this contract was awarded to marine contractors, and your argument is that that company completely missed the deadline and should be disqualified, correct?
No, I'm not saying they missed the deadline. They did not put in any proposal, period.
Okay, so that company was not there when the envelopes were open?
No, no envelope was open, nothing read out from marine contractors whatsoever. And under the Public Procurement Act, the Public Procurement Regulations, the policy and the law, in such situations, they are automatically disqualified.
Now, in your correspondence with some of the bureaucrats in this matter, you say that this episode is a violation of those principles of fairness and openness that Dwight Ball said that the Liberals would campaign on and bring to this province because people deserve it. As a Liberal yourself, how do you feel about making these allegations, particularly during an election campaign?
Well, there's no loyalty to the Premier or the loyalty to the party do not trump the rule of law. This isn't a situation where the value is the loyalty to the Premier or to the party. What we have in this particular situation, the government made the law, Public Procurement Act, which came in effect March the 24th, and they broke the law. Now, the values here we are concerned with, as you indicated, is accountability, is the transparency, is the openness, it's the fairness, is the proper procedure which must be followed here in this particular case. Marine contractors have been in the bidding business for 30 years. Every contractor knows what the requirements is. Every ordinary layman in our society, every Newfoundlander and Labradorian realizes that a open call for bids, if you don't have your bid on that particular day in question, then you're disqualified. But here in this particular case, the government ignored it.
Now, finally, you mentioned fairness, and in the interest of fairness, the company that you represent in this bid for office space, Noton, it's a company that's in your wife's name, so you have an interest in this. What would you say that this is just a case of sour grapes?
I would disagree. It's not a case of sour grapes. This is a case in which there was a competition. Noton participated in this competition. Noton has been in the rental business for 22 years. Here in this particular case, we relied upon the good faith of the government. We hired an architect firm from New Brunswick, an engineering firm from Corner Brook. We had a staff of 10 people hired on. Financial resources, substantial amount was spent. We relied upon the law, the Public Procurement Act. We relied on the good faith, the honesty and integrity of the government, that they would abide by the law which they enacted March the 24th, 2018, but they ignored the law.
What makes you so certain that something wrong happened here? You say in your correspondence with government officials that this comes pretty close to fraud, very strong words. Why are you so certain that something wrong happened here?
I'm so certain because I was present at the time. And when we talk about fraud, it's not in a criminal sense. It's fraud in a civil sense, in the sense that our court is a court of law and equity. And in cases like this, you look at the behavior of the government to determine whether there's misconduct and unconscionable conduct. Here in this particular case, what the government did, they broke the law, they gave the contract to marine contractors, a $20 million contract, and then they did everything to hide what they did to the public.
Well, Mr. Watton, a fairly complicated story, but you make a strong and interesting case. We'll have to follow up on this. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Germain.
Well, as you can tell, that's quite the caper that is out now. The government officials and the minister whose department is getting the office space, they deny the allegations. Jerry Byrne says Graham Watton doesn't have his facts down, that everything was handled above board, and the right company won the contract fairly. And he says if Graham Watton believes he has a legal case, he should take it to court and not the court of public opinion.
There is absolutely no evidence of any substance whatsoever to what Mr. Watton has said. This process was above and beyond. It was just handled with total integrity. Unfortunately for Mr. Watton, he was not successful in this. I know that that probably hurts. I've known Mr. Watton for years. Quite frankly, I'm very proud of the recipient who got it because they put in a bid at best value.
We've entered into an Atlantic Accord for 38 years with no ability to review it or go back.
I think the Premier is very disingenuous in saying we're going to have an election before the end of the school year.
We passed the budget. It was very clear that the parties were not going to support the budget.
Excuse me, you didn't pass a budget.
Well, 3 political insiders break down the week that was. Anthony sits down and has the talk. That's next.
The 2019 election campaign is at the end of week 1, so we've gathered 3 political insiders to examine the week that was. It's time for the talk. Got 3 guests. John Sams is a Liberal campaign advisor, and Lorraine Michael is an NDP MHA, and we've also got Keith Hutchings, a Tory MHA. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Topic 1, the Easter election campaign. Mr. Sams, let's start with you. Did this have some tactical advantage in catching these 2 parties off guard?
I don't think anybody was caught off guard at all. I think everybody knew that this election was coming. We've been very transparent about that. We had some obviously good news happening in the province as well. I mean, there's no denying that, but that's not really what it's about. We're at a critical point right now in this province, and we knew that a big part of the debate for the next time coming would be about the Atlantic Accord, would be about the budget, and so we thought the most appropriate thing to do would be to put it to the people. Let's go back to 2015. You know, the previous Progressive Conservative government refused to do an economic update, refused to show the people of the province the true picture of things. So we decided, no, that's the wrong way to go. The right way to go is to show the people the books and then put it to the people.
I think all parties agreed that nobody wanted to have a provincial and a federal campaign in the fall, but in terms of the timing, were the Tories and NDP, this is, I don't think either one of you thought this would happen before Easter.
No, I mean, first of all, in 2015, we did have a November election, and it worked fine, going according to the legislation, which was the last Monday. We stayed with the legislation, and it worked well. I think the Premier was very disingenuous in saying we're going to have an election before the end of the school year, leading people to think, well, we're going to be into June. And then to bring in the budget and the next day call an election before Easter, I think was terrible.
Why?
Well, number one, people really complained, was the Easter weekend. This is one of the biggest weekends in Newfoundland and Labrador. We have a lot of Christian people in Newfoundland and Labrador who celebrate Easter. And people were very upset. Well, it meant we didn't campaign. You couldn't campaign on Good Friday and Easter Sunday for sure, and minimal on Saturday.
The other big issue here, and as mentioned, let's go back to 2015. Well, let's go back there. We have fixed election dates in this province, and we have legislation.
Apparently not.
In 2015, we came in on April 1st and laid out to the House of Assembly a change in the legislation to change the date to November 30th. This government and this Premier has gone back to 20 years ago when the ultimate control rests with the Premier, any Premier, and the Elections Act and the fixed date was supposed to change that. This Premier has basically thrown that out and led us on for weeks and weeks about when or maybe there will be an election.
All right, got to be fair to Mr. Sams. Last word on this?
Well, I mean, insofar as the Easter holiday is concerned, you know, we passed the budget. It was very clear that the parties were not going to support the budget.
Excuse me, you didn't pass a budget.
Well, no. I mean, I didn't interrupt you now, so let me have a chance.
Right.
We would, you know,
brought down a budget.
Right, we brought down, yeah, that's right. We brought down a budget, and the parties made it very clear that they weren't going to support that, so we decided to put it to the people. And insofar as the rules, we followed the rules. Fixed date elections mean that you can't go beyond a certain date. The Premier was very clear the election's going to happen early, and everybody had notice to do that. If you can't get ready for a campaign, you're not ready to go.
Okay, here we are. We're into the campaign. Lots of promises, including Ches Crosby saying he wants to hold, or he will hold, a referendum on equalization payments. Referendums, very divisive, very expensive. You don't think we already know what Newfoundlanders think of equalization?
Well, I think that goes back to the Constitution, Anthony, and bringing something to the federal government with the acknowledgement of the people of the province that there is an issue, and constitutionally, then the federal government is mandated to negotiate with us. Right now, we've entered into an Atlantic Accord for 38 years with no ability to review it or go back and look at even escalating price in oil and what benefits could flow to the province. It's fixed. So the intent here is to have a referendum and use that as a tool to go to the federal government, and they will be mandated to negotiate the equalization formula, which I think all understand the way it is problematic. It's problematic for Atlantic Canada, and we look at the demographics and how we deliver services, but it needs to be dealt with. And to lock us into something 38 years, we have no say or no review is not acceptable.
You need a referendum because you can't get a sophisticated opinion pool or walk into a bar on George Street and ask people. You don't have a sense.
I think constitutionally, I think Constitution and the succession agreement or succession that came from the Supreme Court out of Quebec some years ago does give emphasis and authority with that referendum to go to Ottawa and say you need to negotiate with us on this.
Laurie Michael, what do you make of this notion?
I mean, it sounds great, but I mean, in terms of the power that we have as one small province in this big dominion, it seems to me it's a waste of energy to have a referendum. I don't mean that we shouldn't be bringing the issue up. I know other provinces in Canada are also saying they're not happy with equalization, but I don't think one province, especially one of the smallest provinces, doing it on our own is going to bring power to the table, as it were.
Mr. Sams, the Premier has actually talked about equalization being a problem. He said he's had a problem with it. What's wrong with this idea of actually going to the people to get a clear mandate from them on this one policy issue?
Well, absolutely. Premier Ball has been clear that there are problems with the equalization policy, but this is not the right idea at all. In fact, I would say it's a misnomer to refer to this as a referendum at all. A referendum is meant to be a tool that it actually assists in making decisions. What this is likely a $5 to $10 million taxpayer-funded survey, because we already know how Newfoundlanders and Labradorians feel about this. The real action is getting $2.5 billion through a partnership with the federal government and getting a commitment to achieve electricity rate mitigation through our partnership with the federal government. Ches Crosby just wants to fight for the sake of fighting because he thinks he's Danny Williams. He's not Danny Williams.
All right. I see some head shaking going on here. Ms. Michael?
Well, first of all, to talk about mitigation, we don't have any agreements between the federal government and the provincial government, only that we're going to try to find a way out. That's the agreement that's in place. So, I mean, I really
you had a Minister of Finance come here and meet with the Premier for 2 hours. There was nothing said. He never even said the word rate mitigation. Right. And there's this magic $200 million that's supposed to appear that we haven't seen of, and we didn't get a chance to debate the budget and actually have a discussion on that in the House of Assembly by the representatives of Newfoundlanders and Labradorians.
The federal government have made clear that they are committed to helping the province achieve rate mitigation. That is a commitment to achieve it. The question is the how. We know what the what is.
Devil's in the details. Last topic number 3. It's about the third party. Ms. Michael, will the NDP have candidates in all of the districts in this province? And do you have any concerns the NDP will not elect a single MHA this time around?
With regard to the second point, I don't have that fear at all. We don't have 40 candidates. We don't know what the final number is. However, we have really good candidates and we have districts which we believe we can win, and we are going to be putting all our energy into those districts for sure.
The sense, though, is even the leader admits that government is not something that the NDP can achieve. You have tended, as government opposition, dealt with the NDP. Any sense this is a binary election, that a lot of people are thinking this is between your two parties? I'm
not sure. I think it's always, for the democratic process to have, the New Democratic Party as part of that sort of brings an ideological bent from their perspective. I think that helps in the democratic process. I'm not sure where it's going to go this time in regards to how they're going to do, but I think it could certainly play into an election and the result if we get down to 40 seats, and if it's close, we have 2 independents, we have 2 NDPs. In terms of where those seats come, it could be the difference in a minority government for either of the 2 parties, the Liberals or the Progressive Conservatives.
All right, Mr. Sams?
Sure, more participation in our democratic system is always better, right? But I mean, what voters have to keep in mind is that they want to choose who is actually going to govern this province. And for those out there who want a party with a conscientious policy, a party that respects collective bargaining agreements and negotiates them in good faith, you want to make sure that Ches Crosby does not become Premier of this province, because we've seen that he's going to follow the Jason Kenney, the Stephen Harper, Andrew Scheer type of politics. You might as well take the word progressive outside of the
fear-mongering begins. The fear-mongering begins, I guess.
I'll give you each 30 seconds to wrap up. What should we look forward to in week 2 of the campaign?
I think you look forward to platforms being rolled out. That'll lay out for people of the province where specific, maybe where some parties are aligned and where they're different. But I tell you one thing, the Progressive Conservative Party will debate a budget, will give the people the opportunity to discuss the issues of the province, and there'll be no doubt in that.
Ms. Michael?
Well, I think for us it's going to be really important this week, especially for our leader and for our other candidates, about knocking on the doors, because we did not get enough contact with the voters during the first week, thanks to the Premier.
All right.
And we're going to be picking up on that.
You get to wrap this up, Mr. Sams?
What you're going to see from the Liberals is a plan, and it starts tonight. There's a little policy announcement tonight, some progressive policy, and then a full platform comes out on Monday. Social sector, economy, jobs, that's what you're going to see starting Monday.
All right. All 3 of you, thank you so much for coming in. It's going to be an interesting campaign to follow, and appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Welcome back.
Yeah. Any ice fall on your head today?
Yeah, actually,
Clink, 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 clink.
out walking the dogs in the graveyard, and that was not a good idea. It was just all coming down everywhere.
A lot of helmets this morning.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and today is Thursday,
It
so...
is Thursday, so we're going to talk about our Weather Whiz kids. So we'll get right into that. Our newest member is Rhea Sully. We take a look at that. There you go. And she sent us this lovely drawing. She's in grade 2 in Tripassi. It's actually not a drawing. She cut things out and put on there. So spring is here.
Very creative. I love unicorns.
Super creative. And there she is there holding her photo.
You love unicorns?
Of course, who doesn't?
Beautiful.
Yes, thank you so much for sending that in. If you want to be part of our Weather Whiz Kid Club, send your drawing to nlphotos@cbc.ca.
Spring is here.
It is. Spring is certainly here.
Yeah.
Despite how it looks outside right now.
Yeah, it looks a little snowy right now, but as we head into the next couple of days, especially towards the weekend, we'll take a look at that. We're going to see a little bit of some clearing, which is nice through the day on Saturday, but if you see that green mess there, that is all that rain. That is certainly not good news for parts of Ontario, Quebec, and the Maritimes as we head through the next couple of days. All of that rain will head our way as we head through the day on Sunday. But Saturday, we are under a ridge of high pressure, which should keep things mainly clear and quiet through the day on Saturday. So that's nice news after that 1-2 punch we had this week. And then we'll continue to see that track a little bit further east as we head through Sunday. And that's when the next weather will move in for us. So taking a look at the temperatures, we're actually going to see rebound as well. So back to seasonal, even potentially reaching the double digits right now. I've kept it around 9 degrees for the west coast and parts of central as well. Up through Labrador, you're going to see nice temperatures as well. 7 degrees for Happy Valley, Goose Bay, plenty of sunshine. A little cooler for Lab City, and that's because that system will move in a little bit sooner for you through the day, or at least through the evening hours on Saturday. So looking a little bit ahead, that low tracks north. By the time it makes it towards Newfoundland and Labrador, we're going to see things not quite as strong as far as how much precipitation falls, but we are still looking at that potential for rain on Sunday. A little bit of a mess up through Labrador, but with those temperatures quite warm, it's either going to be a rain-snow mix through the afternoon, and then the next system will move in on Monday, skirting Newfoundland, it looks like. But with that, again, those temperatures, meaning we could see some snow to start and then transition through to rain as that low pulls away. We're going to get back into that northwesterly flow, and then it looks like snow through the day on Tuesday for Labrador, and eventually that will move out as well. So taking a look at the next 5 days, tomorrow drizzle possible for St. John's and eastern Newfoundland, 4 degrees, 6 on Saturday with that sunshine, and then we'll see that rain move in late day on Sunday. But temperatures are going to climb, so we're going to be back to the double digits hopefully by Monday, and then breezy winds on Tuesday and 6 degrees. Now for central Newfoundland, essentially the same forecast. Sunshine on Saturday, Sunday is when that rain will move in, staying mainly cloudy, and then more rain late day on Monday. Tuesday looks nice though, but chilly at 3 degrees. Western Newfoundland, same thing, 9 degrees through the weekend. Monday, 10, and then breezy on Tuesday. Now for eastern Labrador, those temperatures are going to be above 0, as I mentioned. So rain more than likely on Sunday and Monday, and then return to that snow on Tuesday. Western Labrador, snow transitioning to rain for most part on Saturday, and then rain again on Sunday. So that rain, as I mentioned, moving west, St. John, New Brunswick is bracing for flooding, as is expected to get much worse, as I mentioned a little bit before. Water levels are expected to reach 5.7 meters today.
Majorville to St. John, water levels, according to the forecast, should reach their peak over the next day or two.
Residents are being warned to take all necessary precautions, including evacuating. Homeowners who experienced water damage last year will likely see more of the same this year. Now, 84 roads across New Brunswick have been closed due to flooding. So has a section of the Trans-Canada Highway. Well, there's your weather photo of the day today. A beautiful shot there. I think we can all guess where that's taken. Tons of snow.
There, the big
up
land
through
somewhere.
Exactly. English River is where this photo was taken. You can see a little bit of a sundog there too, which is a lovely Easter break ice fishing day at sundown. So thank you so much, Len, for sending us that photo.
Yep.
And if you have any that you'd like to share with us, send them to nlphotos@cbc.ca.
Great way to spend some time up there fishing all
And lots of
together.
snowmobiling, it looks like up there.
That's
Yeah.
right.
Have a boil up too.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that show went by pretty fast. Try this
Very
again
fast.
tomorrow, perhaps. We'll see you then.
Good night.
Good night.